Hello Year 6, Mrs Greene here, and I'm going to be talking you through the writing lesson this week. But before we do that, I just want to say well done to all the children who are engaging with our YouTube lessons at home, and all the children who've been catching up on Wonder as well, our final Year 6 class text. Okay, so our learning objective this week is to use a range of conjunctions to add, compare, contrast, explain and summarise points. We are going to be using this skill to write a book review. Before we do that, we're just going to rewind and revise the objective we had last week. So last week we had to use cohesive devices, a range of cohesive devices to build cohesion. So if we remind ourselves what cohesion is, so cohesive devices are used to link our ideas in writing, in sentences, paragraphs or parts of text. Used well, they make writing coherent, as when reading it, they will help make the writing flow and logical. So cohesion means that our writing makes sense and that it is clear to read. But what are the four main cohesive devices? Just see if you can remind yourself of these. Okay, so take a look. So for our writing to be cohesive, then we can use paragraphs. Paragraphs help us to organise our ideas. We can use conjunctions. Conjunctions help us to link our ideas. We can use a range of adverbs. These as well can help with it being clear for the reader to understand where we're at, but also can help link ideas. We can vary our nouns and pronouns. Right, now's your turn to have a go. So on this page there is an extract from the class text Wonder. But all of the cohesive devices have been taken out. So I'm going to read it out to you, and where you see a line I'm going to say blank, and I want you to think about what words you could put in that would help this writing to be cohesive. Blank, stupid me. I sat down at a table with Tristan, Nino and Pablo. I thought they were safe because they were in-betweeners, not really popular. Blank. I thought I scored. Blank. They were too nice not to acknowledge me. Blank. I walked over to the table. They all said, hey, though. Blank, blank. I could tell something was up. Blank. The same thing happened. They went to get their lunch and didn't return. Blank. Mrs. G saw them and chased after them. So what cohesive devices could go into these blanks? Well, we can't use a paragraph because we can see this is already a paragraph taken from Wonder. But what conjunctions could we use? What adverbs could be used? Pause the video now and have a go. Right, and here we go. Now I'm going to go through the answers, but that doesn't mean that your answers are wrong. Often, with the English language in our writing, there are other words that could be used that are just as appropriate, that would work just as well. So, the next day at lunch, stupid me. So you could have used the next day or the day after. I sat down at a table with Tristan, Nino and Pablo. I thought they were safe because they were in-betweeners, not really popular. At first, again, you could have used to begin with, or initially. I thought I scored because they were too nice to acknowledge me. When I walked over to the table, they all said, hey, though. But then, and you could have used suddenly there, or to my surprise. I could tell something was up as. Again, you could have used because, but because has already been used. The same thing happened. They went to get their lunch and didn't return. Unfortunately, Mrs. G saw them and chased after them. Now, from my point of view, I would have said, fortunately or luckily. But of course, August doesn't want the teachers to get involved in his business. So well done if you chose some cohesive devices that helped that writing to flow and make sense. So let's look closer at what we're going to be doing this week. So I mentioned earlier that we're going to be using a range of conjunctions within a book review. So, reading teaches you about the world around you Through reading, we learn about people, places and events of our own experience. Reading improves our vocabulary, leads to more highly developed language skills and improves our ability to write well. And I know you've heard lots of teachers say that before. And I know that not everyone enjoys reading, but I would say that is simply because they have not found the right book. And this is where book reviews come in. This is where book reviews are really, really handy. They offer a basic plot, they analyse the strengths and, if any, areas for development. They also offer opinions and recommend suitable age ranges and gender. So you could read a book review and it could really help you with choosing your next book. So the key vocabulary for this lesson, of course, conjunction, words that link ideas, link sentences and paragraphs. Okay, we're going to be using conjunctions that show what's different and what's similar. So we're comparing and contrasting. We're going to be looking at summarising. We're going to be looking at a review because you're going to give your opinions on a book and your recommendations, so who you think will like it and why. And of course we're still going to be looking at cohesive devices because conjunctions falls within that. And a synopsis talks about just a really, really brief summary of what the story is about without giving too much away. Okay, if you would like to, I have found this website which might help you out a little bit. Okay, so if you want to follow that link, it will take you to a website where you can look up some book reviews for lots and lots of different authors and lots of books. So let's take a look. So as you can see, it lists a number of different things, but we're just going to click on reviews. So let's search authors. Okay, and I'm just going to take a look at this one here for you to see what a book review's like. Okay, now what's really, really good about this website are these are book reviews written by children of all different ages. So if we have a look at this one, The Ant and the Grasshopper, this was reviewed by Ramona and she's 9. So she starts off with telling us what the book is about. It's about an ant who worked hard and collected a lot of food for the winter and met a lazy grasshopper. The grasshopper laughed at the ant for working so hard, but the ant laughed in the end of the story. Then she talks about what she likes. My favourite part of the story is when it was winter and the grasshopper was cold and hungry and went to see the ants. My favourite character was the ant because he is very hard-working. I like the pictures in the book because they are attractive and colourful. This is a fable that all children would love. And then you can see she ends with a recommendation. But we're going to take our book reviews a little bit further than this. Okay, so we have our waggle that I always like to share. So what a good one looks like. Okay, so I'm going to read it out to you. And this is a book review of Stormbreaker, a hugely popular book that we all enjoyed in Year 6. Okay. Stormbreaker is the very first novel in the hugely popular Alex Rider series written by Anthony Horowitz. These collections of books are centralised around Alex, who begins as a 14-year-old boy, and the adventures he goes on. In the first few pages of Alex Rider, we learn of a seemingly ordinary boy living in London, but whose life is far from ordinary. Because of the suspicious death of his uncle, Alex is quickly thrown into a life of mystery and extreme danger soon after. Despite still being at school, determined Alex goes in search of the truth. However, he reveals not just the truth of his uncle's death, but that he had been working for the MI6 the whole time. As well as that, Ian Ryder, his uncle, had been preparing Alex for an action-packed life himself with all the adrenaline, gadgets and villains. After becoming the youngest ever spy, Alex has to go on his first mission, but not before he has to pass his grueling and intensive training programme. Stormbreaker is everything a spy novel should be, fast-paced, unpredictable and lined with plots aplenty. I have read Stormbreaker many times and every time I find it captivating. In addition to that, you can't help but admire the strength of Alex, who clearly has had some difficult times to deal with. Alex could be described as a hero, and I can imagine that a small part of children everywhere would dream of such a job. Horowitz's writing is fabulous with vivid character and setting descriptions. Similarly, the dialogue is believable, true to life and humorous in parts. In conclusion, I would recommend this book to children, both boys and girls from the age of 10 to 16. However, many adults would enjoy the read too. It probably isn't suitable for younger children as they may struggle with some of the language or become distressed when Alex finds himself in mortal danger. In addition to that, it would be highly recommended for children with a love of action genres to give it a go, and quite possibly the whole series. You will not be disappointed. So we're going to take a look now at the features. Okay, so as you can see, clearly got a title of the story. In the first two paragraphs, it outlines the basic plot. This is when it tells the reader what the story is about without giving too much away, without giving all the juicy bits, as I like to say. The main characters are also included, so we can see Alex Rider is listed and Ian Rider, but we don't share too many of their characters again because we want the readers to find them out for themselves. Then we have to share the highlights, so what we really enjoyed. Then we look for any parts that were not so good that could be improved. In this case, Stormbreaker is a hit and there weren't many areas for development. And then we can see we move on to recommendations, recommending both boys and girls a certain age range, but also that adults would love it too. And it kind of explains why they think that as well. Okay, but the focus of today's lesson was to look at using a range of conjunctions. So I'm going to share some now within our book review. So you can see clearly highlighted that additional conjunctions have been used. Additional conjunctions help us to add additional points. So examples are as well as that, in addition to that. In Greene we can see that we've used causal conjunctions, or some people refer to them as cause and effect. An example of that is because of. Because of this, because. We've got some compare and contrast conjunctions highlighted in blue. So our compare conjunctions, which refer to something being similar, you can see clearly similarly. And our contrast conjunctions, which refer to something being different, we've got despite and however as examples. And then finally, to use a summarising conjunction, an example of that is in conclusion. So it's a way to kind of summarise, to wrap up, to finalise a piece of writing. And they're usually found in the last paragraph of a piece of writing. Now I know since being at French you have all come across plenty of different conjunctions. And I know that many of you have had these conjunctions grouped together on your learning walls. So think back to what your classrooms look like and think to how some of the conjunctions were grouped together. So you can see we've got our additional conjunctions which add a point. We've got our causal or cause and effect conjunctions which explain or show the consequence of something. We have conjunctions that show time or when something has happened, which can also overlap with adverbials of time too. We've got conjunctions to show contrast, to show change in thought, to show that something is different, and we have conjunctions to summarise. So over to you now. I want you to pause the video and have a think back to the ones that you know. Can you write an example of each conjunction and put it in the box? Okay, so I hope you've all had a go at writing an example of each different conjunction. What I'd like you to do now is look at some of the examples that I've put below and see if you can also add these to the correct columns. Can you add conjunctions to show point, consequence, time, contrast, and to summarise? So pause the video now and have another go. Okay then, right, here we go. Let's have a go all together. So, and helps us to add additional points, as well as okay, therefore is a causal conjunction, when to show time, and we know that when is a subordinate conjunction as well, okay, or to show change in thought, to show that something's different, after to show time, also a subordinate conjunction. Furthermore, there we go, another additional conjunction. overall a summarising conjunction. So, cause, regardless. Regardless. In the end, to summarise as well. On the other hand, to show change. And finally, as a result. And we've also got, sorry, here's finally, but. Okay, take another look. You may have noticed that all of a sudden some of the conjunctions are highlighted in red, and I want you to just think about why I might have done that, because it's something I just want to highlight to you or emphasise to you. Okay, well these are conjunctions that we looked at previously. They are part of the group of conjunctions called coordinating conjunctions, okay, or the short name fanboys. There are a couple missing, but we know them, don't we? For, and, nor, but, or, yet. So, and we had a go last week at joining our sentences together using these. Another challenge for you. So while I was planning my lesson, I came across this game, which I actually found was quite challenging, quite tricky, but fun. It definitely kept me on my toes. So as you can see, there are blanks again. You've got to choose the most appropriate conjunction to go into the blanks. If you look carefully, you can see that we have conjunctions to show contrast, but and although, to show cause and effect, because and so. We have additional conjunctions and we have conjunctions that show time to, until and after. Okay, so simply type in World War conjunction game into Google, and you're looking for one that says World War Net, and it comes up with the game straight away, and press start. So have a go at doing this. My turn again. So here is another short example of a book review on Wonder. There are blanks again, but we're going to talk about what conjunctions would work. Now you can see at the bottom there is a word bank for you to use, but I want to talk through some of my choices first. August Pullman seems like your ordinary 10-year-old boy. Blank. There is something very different about him. Well, straight away we can see that we're making a comparison between ordinary boys and August. So we have to use a contrasting conjunction, and I think however would work here. Sadly, blank. He has been homeschooled. He has always felt like an outsider. That straight away says to me that a causal conjunction is needed, because it's explaining, it's giving you a reason why, and it's giving you a consequence of why he might feel like an outsider. Blank. Young Augie has undergone countless operations, making his early experiences unlike most. That says to me that we're adding an additional point, because we were saying that he feels like an outsider, but we're also saying that he's had countless operations. Going to school for the first time presented as a challenge, but lots of life lessons are learnt along the way. Blank. August has bad days. His good days are made better by his supportive family. Again, I think we've got to use another contrasting conjunction, because it's comparing the bad days with the good days. So, although. Blank. By the end, he realises that he has some supportive friends too. Well, that tells me that again we are comparing. We are comparing his supportive family to his supportive friends. So we're using a comparing conjunction that shows they are similar. So similarly would work here. Blank. This is an incredibly moving story told from different perspectives. So I can tell this is the concluding sentence. So we're finalising our writing, so we've got to use a summarising conjunction. Overall works here. Okay, so now we need to start thinking about our planning for a book review. So to begin with, think about which book you would like to review and have a look at some of the questions on this planning format. Who wrote the book? Who published the book? How many pages does it have? What genre is the book? Who are the main characters? Where was it set? What's the story about? The general gist. What were the best bits? Without giving too much away, would you recommend the book to anybody and why? And what did you not enjoy? If any, you might have completely enjoyed it. What could make it better? So I'm going to have a go at modelling now based on wonder, while you can have a go as well. Okay, so let's have a look at my planning, and I hope you got on okay with your planning. As you can see, I've only written notes. Planning is there not for us to write it all out in full sentences, but to jot down ideas in note form to help us with our writing later on. So you can see I've included the author, the number of pages, and the publishing house, Random House, the genre of the book, children's fiction inspired by true events. I've included most of the main characters, but remember, not all. Always keep something back for those who would like to then read the book. I've put the general gist of the story, that he's a young boy who's undergone countless surgeries making him physically impaired. I've put about the general gist of the book, that he is a young boy who has undergone countless surgeries making him physically impaired. He has to show bravery when going to school for the first time, and his journey, and he finds out what school is all about and meets some kind and not so kind children on the way. What did I enjoy most about the book? I liked it when some children stood up for Augie, that he found out that there are really good children, really good people out there. And I love the fact that throughout the book there are lots of precepts that teach us valuable lessons. I think anybody would like this book. I loved it. So I'm recommending it to children and adults, but more so to children of school age. What did I not enjoy? There wasn't anything I didn't enjoy. Now to help you, I'm going to model writing a short book review of Wonder. I've listed the paragraphs to help you structure your writing. So paragraph 1, I'm going to include information about who the author was, the number of pages, and the general gist of the story. In paragraph 2, I'm going to talk about what I liked in particular. And in paragraph 3, I'm going to make my recommendations. Okay, so using my notes, I'm going to start my introduction. My first few sentences are going to speak about who wrote the book, who published it, and the genre. So, Wonder, written by R.J. Palacio and published by Penguin Random House, is a children's fictional story inspired by true events about a 10-year-old boy, August Pullman, who lives in New York City. I'm going to start with a contrasting conjunction, despite. Despite being 10, August has not had an ordinary childhood. compared to most. Let's highlight despite our first conjunction, our first contrasting conjunction. He has experienced some normality, such as playing the Xbox. Well, I'm going to go on to compare to say what he hasn't though, to show difference again or change of thought. And I'm going to use however, another contrasting conjunction, but I've got to use a semicolon before however. However, he has never been to school. Right, let's highlight another contrasting conjunction. Then I'm now going to use a causal conjunction because I'm going to explain the consequence of him not going to school. So, as a result of this, his mother has had to homeschool him. Right, let's highlight my causal conjunction now. You can see I'm using a range of conjunctions. Okay, moving on. This is for the reason that August was born, oh my pen, with many facial deformities. Okay, and I'm going to highlight for the reason that, which can be used as a causal conjunction as well. Right, another causal conjunction. Because of this, he has had to undergo countless surgeries. So because of this, another causal conjunction which is explaining the consequence of that. Now I'm going to add an additional point, and I'm going to use in addition as my additional conjunction. In addition to that, in addition to this, he has a hearing impairment. This story talks about his journey of starting school for the first time. For the first time. Right, moving on to my second paragraph. This is going to talk about what I enjoyed about the book, what were my favourite parts. So this is an incredibly emotive and inspiring story that teaches us about the value of kindness. Throughout the text, his teacher presents the class with precepts. I'm going to use a causal conjunction, hence the reader, being me, or anybody that reads it, the reader is forced to consider the lessons on a personal level. Let's highlight another conjunction. I'm going to add an additional point, something else that I really enjoyed. Furthermore, character of Augie is one to be admired. With his constant battle accepted. And I'm going to add another conjunction on, as with Mr. Tushman. Oh, I was trying to spell extremely, extremely. Inspirational and fair. Head teacher. So let's highlight I've used furthermore and as with more conjunctions. I'm going to move on to the third paragraph, which is going to talk about my recommendations and why. So I'm going to start with, due to the very theme of this book, it would be suited for all ages and genders. Everyone could relate to this message. Okay, let's highlight that conjunction. Okay, I'm going to add an additional point, so I'm going to use moreover as additional conjunction. Moreover, maybe everyone should read this story to make positive changes. And then finally, I'm going to wrap it all up now. All in all, there's my summarising conjunction. All in all, school-aged children, especially Key Stage 2, would understand the concepts of bullying, perseverance and friendship. Your turn. Okay, so your task this week is to write a book review for Wonder or any other story. It could be one of your favourite stories, or it could be a story you really, really did not enjoy. But your challenge is to use a range of conjunctions to link your ideas. Chili 1, to use conjunctions to add and explain. Examples of these are also, in addition, as well as that, furthermore. Chili 2, to do Chili 1 plus use conjunctions to contrast. That could be however, although, but, on the other hand. And Chili 3 is to use Chili 1 and 2, but also consider using conjunctions to compare. Examples are similarly or like. And again, try to use conjunctions to summarise. Examples could be overall, all in all, in conclusion. And finally, Year 6, can I remind you that any work that you do, if you could send in to our Year 6 email, year6@frenchprimary.works.uk. The Year 6 teachers love reading the work that you send in, and I'd be fascinated to know which books you have enjoyed or not enjoyed.